Great, we got everybody in there. Michael, do you need any clarifying questions on the procedure or anything, or can we jump right into the questions?
Sounds like 10 questions. I'm good to go. Good to meet all of
Okay,
you.
great. Okay, first question. Please tell us why you decided to apply for this position and what strengths you would bring to the board.
Oh man, I decided to apply because, well, it was pointed out quite dramatically on social media that the position was open. And I got to see some of the concerns that there were with the school board, and really, I get excited about solving problems. It's a real pain for my wife sometimes. I'm an engineer by trade. I'm analytical. I solve problems. I'm really familiar with balancing requirements that are often in conflict with each other to come to a good solution, as well as having 3 kids, 4, 2, and 1, who will be attending the Battleground School District in the future. So I really believe, as I wrote in my intro letter, in proactive problem solving. So I want to be able to participate and bring whatever I can to make sure that my kids and all the kids in the district can get the best education and support that they need.
Great, thank you. Okay, second question. What experiences have you had on other boards or in management or leadership positions? And there's 2 parts here. What are the 3 most important attributes for a school board director to possess?
My leadership experience, I don't have experience on boards like this. My leadership experience is primarily more professional, running a local business, having employees, as well as being a consultant, which is simultaneously a above and below leadership position where you're really providing a service, but they're expecting you to come in with some level of expertise to provide guidance. And I think a lot of the traits that make for a successful consultant or leader or business owner really align with the same things that a successful school board director would have. A calm demeanor in the face of either adversity or perceived adversity is the first thing that comes to mind. The second that comes to mind is being able to take in a variety of opinions, options, balance those conflicts. And the third would be able to make decisions based on that information and have those decisions be supported by the data and information that you gathered.
Great, thank you. Third question is, what do you feel are 2 things the district does well and 2 areas where the district could improve?
Despite so not having kids in the district, I'm probably a little less plugged in than some people as to what's being done wrong. I hear really positive things about the teachers in the Battleground School District, and I believe if folks are able to do their job and be respected, that must mean something really good is happening up top to allow them to be doing that. So I've heard really good things about the teachers. I personally was really pleased at the response to COVID, especially keeping in mind things like kids who may still need school lunches. I've seen the district really stepped up quickly to be able to provide that service to the kids. The 2 difficulties would be, and kind of my perspective is somewhat perception is reality, and balancing that with a more objective reality is there being something of a disconnect between the feedback loop between some of the constituents in the district and the school board themselves. So kind of closing that communication loop to make sure that folks feel that they're heard, feel that they're respected, is something that I think is really important to be able to do. Nothing immediately comes to mind for the second thing. That would be wrong. But hopefully the first one is big enough to count for 2.
Okay, great. Our 4th question, what goals would you like the board to set?
So right in line with what I had just mentioned, finding a way to kind of close the communication gap between the constituents who are struggling with what's going on in the schools would be really my top priority. My second would be to make sure that going forward in a post-COVID world, which nobody knows what that means yet, to make sure that there's a handle on using technology properly and appropriately to empower rather than using it just as a crutch to help us limp along. I think it can be used to really empower and make things even better than before.
Great suggestion. Okay. Our fifth question is, what kind of a time commitment can you make to the work of the board? There are sometimes additional meetings or times to engage with the community in two-way discussions about issues. You may have to take time away from work to attend conferences, training, or workshops.
Mm-hmm. They say if you want something done, ask a busy person to do it. So I am managing a small farm that I live on with horses and alpacas and chickens and ducks, raising 3 kids as well as working remotely. I still find myself with lots of time to pursue the things that I'm interested in. So to make a longer story short, I find time to get things done. Taking time from work won't be an issue. I have a very flexible schedule, so it wouldn't even really be taken away from that time. So I looked into the position and what it would entail before submitting my name, and I really don't think there should be any issues at all with meeting the time commitments and even going above and beyond if there's committees or additional things that need to be worked on.
Great to hear. Thank you. So our sixth question is, tell us about your interactions with Battleground Public Schools and share with us any perceived or real conflicts of interest.
To address the second question, I don't believe there are any conflicts of interest that exist. My experience with the Battleground School District has been, I'll say, really twofold. The first is, and if this is a conflict of interest, let me know. I'm currently tutoring a student in math in the Battleground School District. So I've been able to be a bit plugged into what's going on with COVID, some of the struggles that students are having with remote learning, as well as seeing some of the technology involved. My other probably more significant interaction was when there was the teacher school strikes 2 years ago, something like that now. The teacher school strikes, I went down. I enjoy bringing a camera and a notebook places and talked with a bunch of teachers, took some fun pictures just to really get an understanding of what was going on, what was happening from the teachers themselves versus what was being said all over the place. So I felt it gave me some really good insight, and I was really impressed with the caliber of character and dedication that the teachers had.
Great, thank you. And to my knowledge, tutoring in math is not a conflict of interest. So,
all right.
Our seventh question, do you believe that once a school board has made a decision, all board members should support the will of the majority, and why or why not?
A fantastic question. I'd like to give 2 answers. No, I don't think everyone needs to be in alignment or needs to vote the same way, with the caveat that it's very beneficial if there is an explanation from especially the person in opposition, clearly explaining the reasons why. And I think there is some use in presenting solidarity, even though there is dissent in the decision, that the board is dedicated to moving forward and making good decisions. I don't think that disallows someone from having respectful disagreement about the way to go forward. So that's sort of the no and yes at the same time answer. I think it's important for everyone to be united, present something of a united front, just as me and my wife may disagree on some specifics of child rearing, but it's not really healthy for us to get into a screaming match about it in front of the kids.
Okay. Our 8th question, are there particular community connections that you have or constituents that you would represent as a school board member?
District 1 is really my plan. Um, are you asking if I'm plugged in or connected to any specific groups within the district? I want to make sure I understand the question properly before answering.
I think I can clarify, Michael, not necessarily. Some people have a passion for particular groups. For instance, some people might want to advocate for students with disabilities.
Mhm.
It's along those. Some people want to advocate for the arts,
Mhm.
STEM work. Those kinds. I think that's more what we're interested in.
Mhm. I would say my priorities would lie more with the needs of students in general versus, say, state requirements. While state requirements are something that need to be understood and followed, making sure that those are in alignment and being implemented in a way that is healthy for kids' education. I believe every kid is an individual. And should be able to be addressed where they're at. If they have extra needs, to let those be addressed. I don't really come in with a particular agenda or particular group that I'm most focused on.
Thank you. Okay, our ninth question is kind of a two-parter, but closely connected. So if you are not appointed, do you plan to run for this position in the November 2021 school board election? And if you are appointed, do you plan to run for this position in the November 2021 school board election?
My wife just asked me the same question. Yes, on both counts. Okay,
that was straightforward. Okay, our 10th question. Battleground Public Schools obtains 14% of its budget from levies. With the recent levy failure, what are your thoughts about moving forward?
A levy question, how surprising. Personally, I'd love to see the levy passed. I think it's important, even if there are valid concerns about where money is being spent, how money is being spent. I think those are things that constituents need to hear and need to feel that they can address. I believe in not cutting off my nose to spite my face. I think those sorts of problems should best be handled with the schools funded in a way that is healthy for the kids to learn, develop, be able to participate in school as they expect to. So that would be what I want to see, what I want to happen. As a consultant, as a problem solver, if the levy is unable to pass, then I'm also interested in finding creative ways to work with what we have and find positive solutions while understanding cuts will need to be made. And again, coming from the perspective of what do the kids need most, what's the healthiest for the kids, and making decisions there. And simultaneously, if the levy were to not pass, understanding, coming to terms with the board of, hey, whatever messaging, whatever marketing, however things are being said to the public, it's not working, and that needs to be understood and changed, and be able to be flexible, to be able to, the next time a levy vote rolls around, be able to handle it in a different way in order to help get it passed.
Great, thank you. Well, those were our 10 questions, and so you get a chance to ask us some questions.
What have you guys found to be the biggest challenge during COVID?
I should probably let Mark and Denny do that, but
Mark, do you want to jump in?
Everything. I think just meeting all of the needs of the students, because as we've talked about before, we have a very diverse and geographically large district. And so we have students, that have technology needs that need to be met. We have students with learning needs that need to be met, and how do you do that when we were for a while fully remote, and now that we're in a hybrid schedule, are we still, spending enough time that we need to with some of the students that are really struggling. So it's been a real challenge. Obviously meeting the students' needs first is our biggest concern, but also meeting the parents' needs as well. We have parents we understand are working parents, and parents that are struggling as much with the technology sometimes as their students. So meeting all of the needs of all of our families has been, sometimes very heart-wrenching and a struggle at times.
I know that I believe most, if not all, of the board members are relatively new. What impact, well, maybe two questions, depending on how candid you feel like being. What's been the reasons for the turnover in the board, and what impact has there been from having relatively young group? I know that the gentleman leaving has been around for a long time and stated that he wanted to stick around to help the transition, but I just want to hear from the board what's been difficult, why has there been turnover, and what are you looking at for the future?
Great. Well, Michael, for myself, I can say I was surprised to learn shortly after getting on the board that an average term for a school board member almost nationwide is just barely one term. And so that doesn't seem to be an unusual situation. I would say, thankfully, we have a great organization, the Washington State School Directors Association, that helps people get up to speed quickly. And if you embrace their help, make you an effective board member, even on a short term. If anybody else wants to chime in, that's welcome.
Hey, Michael. Oh, sorry, Troy. This is Rob. I was going to say that both Mark Watchman and myself came in at about the same time and replaced individuals that had been serving on the board for 8+ years, and it was time for them to make a change. And so we came in at that point. And I know Jackie came in because we had a board member move out of state. So as I look at the board, I don't feel like there's been a whole lot of turnover other than what's been positive in a way to have opportunities for us that are newer on the board to put in our footprint on the youth of today. And so I don't see that as a big turnover issue. Most of us have been in there. Most of the previous board members were in there several years or moved. So that was the reason for the changes recently.
I would just add that it's been a rough 4 years. COVID, measles, teacher strike. What am I missing? There's been
boundary
school
stuff,
boundaries,
sex education, all kinds of stuff.
all sick. Yeah. So it feels like, I know for me, it doesn't feel like 4 years. But I will say, in general, I think most people underestimate the time, energy that this position takes. I'm going to turn off my camera. I think I'm frozen.
No, you're not.
So, and also potentially the toll it takes, just from an emotional standpoint of, seeing the need for kids and maybe not being able to meet those all the time, or, whatever that disconnect may be. So, there's a toll on you from an emotional standpoint. And I think people truly underestimate how much time the average board member spends on this.
How much time would you say is needed for you, and is that representative of the rest of the board?
I think we say on average probably 10 hours a week, and for somebody and for the president it's probably 20. With the remote, it's probably a little less because we're not doing school tours, but and with COVID it may be a little less because we're not doing as many community outreach type events and going to events. But it can be a lot if you're doing it right, if you're reading the curriculum, if you're reading the policies, if you're doing your homework.
Gotcha. Don't want to take up too much more of your time. Just one more question from whoever would like to answer. What are the holes or deficiencies or weaknesses that you feel that the board has that you'd be looking to fill with the new board member?
Well, I'll go to the board does a yearly self-evaluation that then we get together and take a look at ourselves and say, you know, how can we get better? And we just did that in January. We picked 3 areas that we wanted to get better as a team. So I don't know that we're looking to fill an individual thing. But we talk about, number one, because we have had some turnover on the board, we want to do a good job of orientating new members when they come in. Our student members, for example, we turn over one of those every year. So we know we're going to have that. Director McCoy really talked about how we look at student data and then present that to the public as something that we want to do. And Director Hendrickson was really looking at some equity issues and how do we get voices from all populations in our community to the board. Did I represent that okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to lie in an interview, but I would like one more question. My video list was short, and I forgot that there was also student representatives here. So for Sydney or Adeline, I'm interested in what your interactions with the board are like and what you feel would improve, or maybe it's fantastic now, what you would like to see happen between the board and the students.
I can start off. Right now, sorry, can you repeat the first part?
It's the question is really a general question of what you would like to see happen and improve between the board and the students.
Right now, and I was here my junior year too. I think so far it's been really good. I think what we're trying to work on is getting out information to other students so they can kind of contact me to represent them through the board, because lately I've just kind of been sitting back and just taking the experience. So right now, I guess nothing. I think everything's going pretty well, but there are some things that like we can work together on to kind of get my voice out there so I can help other students and represent them. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah,
Is my
thank you.
internet-
Things being good is a good answer too.
To add to what Adeline said, I just recently joined, so I kind of just joined through the whole COVID situation. And personally, I think that, you know, the communication within the board and the students right now through COVID, I think it's to the best of what we can have. I mean, there are some circumstances where we could communicate more, but there just wasn't that communication, and that's partly my job, and I'll take ownership for that. But I think with what I've seen, I'm pretty happy with the communication that we've had between the students and the board, and hopefully it's only going to get better with hybrid.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Michael?
That's all.
Okay, great. Board members, if you want any clarifications or extensions from the questions that we asked earlier, this would be a good time to go back and pick those up.
Michael, will you share a little more about your volunteer experience and how are you doing that? Thanks.
Sure. My volunteer experience, think about what I listed. Most of it was in New Jersey. That's where I grew up, just outside of New York City. So I spent 5 years, I believe, with the Big Brother, Big Sister program, being the big brother, not the little brother, working with a kid who lived about 20 minutes away from me. He was considered at risk in a number of ways. So we built like a really solid relationship. Still are in contact. Still in contact now. So that was going out usually twice a month to do some activity. It was different every time, and just be a mentor, just be a person, just be a pal. Sometimes be a tutor, sometimes be just really whatever was needed to help him bridge the gap between where he was and where he could be and what he could achieve. I also spent many years volunteering at day camp as a camp counselor, mostly focused on 10 to 13, 14-year-old boys. In that particular camp, as probably is true of many, that was considered a difficult group to work with, and me and them got along just fine. Other more professional-oriented volunteering was taking a trip to Haiti with a group of engineers in order to build at a mission. So it was a combination church, mission, school, really just community center, installing a solar panel power station with solar panels and batteries, as well as training folks on how to do those installations and how to maintain themselves. Yeah, I think that's pulls together the bulk of my volunteer experience.
Great, thank you.
Other board members, clarifying questions? Okay, hearing none. Again, thank you, Michael, for showing interest in the position and applying and learning about it. You are the last interviewee, so we are going to dismiss to executive session and go over candidates' qualifications, but we do plan on returning to the regular meeting to see if we have nominations and a final vote. So we hope to move that along tonight. There's also a short turnaround between now and the next actually regular board meeting, which is Monday at 6 o'clock, and it at least is more like a regular board meeting, not a lot of extras to it, just a little bit. And we hope to be able to bring the new member up to speed as quickly as possible. So that may mean a meeting somewhere towards the end of this week before the Monday board meeting. Anything else I forgot there, team?
You got it.
Okay, great. Well, again, thank you so much for applying.
Thank you, Michael.
Michael.
Thank you.
you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.